Hey guys, my name's Doug with Infotainment.com. Today we're working on the 2019 and up Ram heavy duty truck. This is the 2500 through the 5500. We've had a lot of requests for a cargo camera. Now this is a 100% factory cargo camera. Today I'm going to show you guys how to install a factory cargo camera in your truck. Now, not only does it have an embedded camera, but it also has LED lights, which is great for visibility when you're driving the truck, it being a stop lamp itself. It'll also give you really good visibility in your cargo in the bed of your truck as well. We'll demonstrate that shortly. Very easy to install. Again, plug and play. You're just going to route some wiring to behind the radio. You're going to plug it into our radio interface. And then last but not least, you're temporarily going to install our security gateway module bypass. And then you're actually going to program the vehicle's body control module using the OBD Genie programmer. So let's get started. All right, before we get started, guys, I wanted to let you know this cargo camera upgrade works only with the 8.4-inch radios and the 12-inch radios. So if you happen to have the smaller base model radio in your Tradesman or your Bighorn, you're going to want to upgrade to any of those 3 or 4 different radios that we have available at Infotainment.com before you do the installation. I wanted to point that out real quick before we got started. Okay, now we're in the back seat of the truck. So in order to get the wiring through the top of the truck, we're gonna lower the headliner down just a little bit. We don't need to remove it, we just need to pull it down just a little bit. So we have 2 hangers here. Behind these little caps here are Torx T20 screws. And then on the quarter panels themselves, there's a cap on each side, and behind each of those is 1 Phillips head screw. So we have a total of 4 screws we're going to remove. And that will give us a little bit more leeway to tuck some wiring behind this headliner. So we'll do that now. All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna remove the existing factory third brake light. There's only 2 Phillips head screws that hold it in, so we can go ahead and remove those. Once those screws are removed, you're just gonna grab a hold of the bottom and pull it out, and we can disconnect the wiring. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to plug in our cargo camera wiring. So you just put these together. Once you do that, I like to use a little bit of electrical tape just to make sure the connections are nice and secure and they don't come undone. All right, so now that we have this connection here taped up and nice and connected, this we're gonna route to behind the radio. So we're gonna go ahead and stick this loom through this cavity right here. You can actually feel the headliner, and we're gonna stuff it down there, and then we'll go into the cab and we'll pull that wiring down from the headliner. Now we're ready to go ahead and plug in the factory wiring for the third brake light. Now we can go ahead and install the new brake light in the exact same spot as the original. All right, now we're going to reach behind the headliner and we're going to pull down all of the slack. So at this particular point, we're just going to run this loom down the headliner, down the quarter panel, down the floorboard to behind the radio. So it's just a matter of just tucking it behind. All right, and we run the wiring down the quarter panel down to the floor. So now we're going to go back and just kind of put everything back in place, which is those 4 screws. All right, this particular point, we have the wiring up under the steering column. Now we have to get it to behind the radio cavity. So we're gonna go ahead and remove the infotainment system along with the instrument panel. We'll be able to fish that wire up here to finish the installation. Now to remove the instrument panel, including the infotainment system, there's only 2 screws on the top of the dash. So you're gonna lift out on the tray liner and take out the 2 7mm screws. At this particular point, you can use a dash pry tool and work your way around the circumference of the instrument panel, or you can just kind of muscle it out. It's only held in with retaining clips. So now what we could do is just disconnect all the connectors that are plugged in. Okay guys, so basically what I did is I routed the wiring up through here, and then I routed it behind the steering column. And then the wiring for the brake, I zip tied it way up here. And then just kind of took the wiring and put it up in the radio cavity, and then that way I can grab it from up on top. All right, we now have all of our slack here. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna coil it up, and we'll go ahead and put a zip tie on it. You could use electrical tape too, but that way it keeps it nice and neat behind the radio cavity. All right guys, we have these 3 connections here. This blue wire here for the cargo camera install, this is not needed, so you can tuck that back. Now we have 2 connections here. This connection here is the video line coming from the cargo camera, and this is the power and ground for the cargo camera. So the way that we designed it is to be plug and play. So we are gonna connect this here to our EZ-DC. Now this is going to tap into power and ground through your cigarette lighter. So you plug your factory cigarette lighter connector into the female end. This end will plug into the actual cigarette lighter port on the top of your instrument panel. So at this particular point, we'll put a little bit of electrical tape around this connection here. And that's the power and ground connection for the cargo camera. Okay, now we're going to connect the video. Now what we have here is our C4T, it's the CINT C4T connection interface. So we have a couple inputs here. The yellow is for a backup camera. The blue is for an older generation RAM cargo camera. This green connection here, which is labeled cargo camera 2, this is the one we're going to connect to. So we're gonna plug the yellow into the cargo camera 2 interface, or RCA. So then we can use a little bit of electrical tape and wrap it around that connection. Now there's a lot of other bits and pieces to this harness. This harness is used for a lot of our upgrades. Disregard everything else on this harness. We only need to connect into the cargo camera 2 port. Now we can plug our factory radio connector into here, lift the lever all the way up, slide it in, and then press it down. So now we can just button up the dash here and plug everything in to our instrument panel and our infotainment system, and then we're ready to do the OBD Genie programmer. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and plug everything in. This is our new EZ-DC. This is our power connection. So that'll fit right in. Then we can just plug in all the existing connectors that we initially unplugged. All right guys, so now that we have all the connections connected, we're just gonna set this instrument panel in place, but now we're gonna roll some old footage of an earlier install we did in this truck on how to install the security gateway module bypass and the OBD Genie programmer. We wanna make sure that everything's connected whenever we do that procedure, so we'll stop now and show you that earlier footage. Once that's all done and we get the solid green light, we're gonna reinstall everything, and then we're just gonna pop this into place and then put our 2 screws back in. All right, guys, I'm gonna show you how to run the OBD Genie programmer in the 2019 and up heavy-duty Ram truck. Now, in order to run the Genie programmer to enable the option that you're looking for, you also have to install temporarily a security gateway module bypass. Now, this is just installs temporarily just to allow you to program the vehicle's body control module for the specific feature you're looking to enable. Now, the security gateway module is located behind the speedometer, so I'm gonna show you guys how to get to that. It's not as hard as it sounds. The whole process, including the programming and reassembling, takes about 15 to 20 minutes. So let's get started. You notice it gives you a little bit of room here. All we have to do now is pull on this little panel here, just enough to loosen it up a little bit. Now what we're gonna do is pull out the speedometer bezel here. So what you're gonna wanna do is on the lip of the bezel here, to put your pry tool in or a regular screwdriver, you're just gonna wanna pry down on it to release the clips. Then just pull it out. You notice it just has retaining clips. There's no screws that hold that bezel in. So on the right side of your speedometer, you're gonna have the little part that you popped out earlier. You don't have to disconnect this, just kind of set it off to the side. Same thing on the other side, just pop that off. Set it off. Now you're gonna notice 2 7mm screws on this instrument or this steering column panel. So you're gonna go ahead and remove those 2 screws. I like to go ahead and put the column down a little bit, but basically you just pop this out. And then you'll notice 2 lower screws on the actual speedometer itself, and then 2 screws at the top. So go ahead and remove those 4. All right, now that all of our screws are out, we can simply just pull the cluster out, flip it upside down, and just temporarily disconnect it. Behind the speedometer cluster is where the security gateway module is located. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna disconnect those 2 connectors that are in the side of that module. These 2 connectors here will simply just plug into our bypass device. We can just set it back here. We can go ahead and install our cluster. We're just gonna set the cluster back in place. We're not gonna actually screw it in. We're just gonna set it back in place. Now at this particular point, now that the security gateway module bypass is installed, now we can run our OBD Genie programmer in the OBD2 port. All we have to do is put the vehicle in the run position, and then we can go ahead and plug it in. It takes about 30 seconds. You'll see a green light illuminate, and then once the green light comes on, you know you're all done. All right, what we're gonna do is go ahead and put the vehicle in the run position, and we'll go ahead and plug in our Genie programmer. You'll see a series of lights. As soon as you get the solid green light, you can go ahead and unplug it. It won't be needed anymore. All right, we now have the solid green light, so we can go ahead and disconnect it. You'll also notice that your speedometer cluster and your infotainment system will reset as well. All right, guys, we went ahead and turned the truck off.
Now all we have to do is just remove the bypass device, plug those 2 cables back into the security gateway module, and just reassemble everything. So as you can see, very easy to do. We've been in here for maybe 12 minutes. So what we're gonna do now is just kind of put it all back. All right, we're gonna go ahead and put this closeout panel in. You'll notice how it kind of has this lip here. You're gonna wanna stick that in and then pop it into place. The other side is the same way where the ignition switch is. All right, now when you install the speedometer bezel, you're going to want to clip in the bottom first, and then slide the top back, and it'll pop back into place.
All right, guys, as you can see, a really easy upgrade for the new body Ram heavy-duty truck. Now we have the ability, now that the Genie has done its magic, now we can get in by pressing our touchscreen. We can select the cargo camera view, and we can have a great view of what's in the bed of our truck. So what you're going to want to do is go into Controls and select Cargo Cam. And now you get that clear line of sight right there in the bed of your truck. Those of you who have a gooseneck and hooking up to maybe a travel trailer, what an awesome, easy way to do it by having a factory installed cargo camera. Remember, you also get the bright LEDs at night for your cargo, and you get the bright LEDs as a stop lamp as well. So what an awesome upgrade. Another one from Infotainment.com. Thanks for watching.